This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. Finally, all back on the same time zone. Hello, Timothy.
Well, we're on the same coast. I took the red eye last night. Now I'm back at my mother's because I left from here after Thanksgiving, and I flew back. And fortunately, that flight from California to Boston, vice versa, is actually kind of better than the New York one. They're, well, at least my experience so far, they've been all pretty empty. So I managed to have a fairly relaxing flight.
So you took the red eye. You're back.
I had the red eye back. It was comfortable. So I'm in Gloucester, Massachusetts right now, and tomorrow I will return to good old New York City, the hustle and bustle.
There's not much hustling and bustling. You mean after our luxurious sojourn to San Francisco and Los Angeles?
Well, that was fun, and hanging with V. Vale and Mark McCloud is really fun.
Not to mention Eugene of Oxbow. They were fantastic. That was a great show. The Great American Music Hall gig was great.
Beautiful room. And then LA was an interesting one, but I had a good time playing. I know you
had a great time.
Organization. Yeah, we had a good time playing. And then I did a solo show. Weasel did a duo.
I have a global tragic piece of news. So let me just begin.
Okay.
When the Express Pearl container ship caught fire and sank in the Indian Ocean in May, Sri Lanka was terrified that the vessel's 350 tons of heavy fuel oil would spill into the ocean, causing an environmental disaster for the country's pristine coral reefs and fishing industries. Classified by the UN as Sri Lanka's worst maritime disaster, the biggest impact was not caused by the heavy fuel oil, nor was it the hazardous chemicals on board, which included nitric acid, caustic soda, and methanol. The most significant harm, according to the UN, came from the spillage of 87 containers full of lentil-sized plastic pellets called nurdles.
Fuck.
They're called
nurdles is what they're called?
I thought I would stump you with that one. Let me finish. Since the disaster, nurdles have been washing up by the billions, along hundreds of miles of the country's coastline, are expected to make landfall across the Indian Ocean coastline from Indonesia and Malaysia to Somalia. In some places, they are up to over 2 feet deep. They've been found. They've been found in the bodies of dead dolphins and the mouths of fish. 1,680 tons of nurdles were released into the oceans, the largest plastic spill in history. Nurdles, the colloquial term for pre-production plastic pellets, are the little-known building block for all our plastic products. The tiny beads can be made of polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, polyvinyl chloride, other plastics. Now, when they're released into the environment from plastic plants or when shipped around the world as raw material to factories, they will sink or float depending on the density of the pellets, often mistaken for food by seabirds, fish, and other wildlife. So in the environment, they fragment into nanoparticles whose hazards, of course, are more complex. They're also the second largest source of micropollutants in the ocean by weight, after tire dust. An astonishing 230,000 tons of nurdles end up in the oceans every year. Now, like crude oil, nurdles are highly persistent pollutants and will continue to circulate in ocean currents and wash ashore for decades. They're also, I'm just choking on the fumes. They're also toxic sponges, which attract chemical toxins and other pollutants. So, I mean, if they could find a way to actually get the nurdles to clean up the rest of but now they're not going to. The pellets themselves are a mixture of chemicals. There are fossil fuels, toxic sponges, a lot of toxic chemicals, which in the case of Sri Lanka are already in the water, are hydrophobic. They repel water, so they gather on the surface. And they can be 1,000,000 times more concentrated on the surface of pellets, the pollution of the plastics in water. So when a fish eats a pellet, some of the pollutants come.
I mean, of course. But who named them nurdles? Who even named them that? I mean, it's like adding fuel to the fire. It's like, they're all nurdles.
More horrifying. Nurdles also act as rafts for harmful bacteria such as E. coli or even cholera.
Makes
transporting them from sewage outfalls and agricultural runoff to bathing water, shellfish beds. The phenomena of plastic rafting is increasing. Now,
I can imagine,
nurdles, unlike substances such as kerosene, diesel, or petrol, are not yet deemed hazardous under the International Maritime Organization's
Oh,
dangerous goods.
I'm glad they told us that. I guess we shrug our shoulders and move on, right?
This is despite the threat to the environment from plastic pellets being known for about 3 decades. Okay, now, anyway, Sri Lanka's call for nurdles to be classified as hazardous goods are attracting public support with more than 50,000 people signing a petition. But there is obviously nothing yet to stop what happened in Sri Lanka. And this wasn't the only nurdle spill. So last year, there were at least 2 nurdle spills. In the North Sea, a broken container on the cargo ship MV Transcarrier, 10 tons of pellets, which washed up in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Now, again, so much pollution caused, for instance, by America is going to affect places that have less pollution. I mean, it's just the way it is.
It's just the way it is. And I mean, people are going to be eating chicken nurdle soup pretty soon. It's just everywhere like that. I had to drop that. But
yeah, I had to. In South Africa, a spill last year in South Africa came after an accident, which was 2 years before that, which affected 1,250 miles of coastline. And only 23% of the 49 tons were recovered. So, I mean, they go out, say a ship crashes, and then it takes forever. I mean, literally.
No, once it's out, it's fucked. It's fucked.
Right. Okay.
Fucked.
So anyway, the awareness is growing about the huge threat posed by the tiny pellets. And last year, 2 environmental protesters in the U.S. were charged under a Louisiana state law with terrorizing a plastics industry lobbyist when they left a box of nurdles outside his house as part of a campaign. Well, the nurdles actually came from a Formosa plant in Texas, which had spilled into the Lavaca Bay on the Gulf of Mexico.
Right, so,
oh my God!
So nurdles, so this is a major topic. How is it so ignorant for so many people? Nurdles kind of define a lot of people's lives.
Exactly. I wish
nudicles? What about nudicles? You know,
I wish more nerds would sign this petition. Anyway, the cleanup in Sri Lanka is going to go on forever. And 20,000 families had to stop fishing. When the fishermen actually get into the water, the pellets get into their ears.
Yay. All right.
I mean, just to top that off with
it's not stop. I mean, it's just the list is going to go on forever. It's just like a mess. It's like yesterday. It's like sand and glitter, it just follows you everywhere. The nurdles are just like, once it's in the ocean, you're fucked. What about nudicles? You know what nudicles are?
I do not know what nudicles are.
Nudicles.
The cousin of nurdles?
Well, I think they might be the big brother of nurdles. I think some people are worried that when they castrate dogs or other animals, that their balls are gone, even though their testosterone starts going down, they implant fake testicles in their scrotum, and they're called nudicles. And those are little plastic things too. They're kind of like giant lima beans. Anyhow, I'm very upset about even knowing about nurdles. It just makes things worse. All right, so there's a guy named William Fields, Connersville, Indiana. Now, this guy has worked for Pizza King for 30 years, and basically the whole town loved him. Everyone trusted William Fields. Well, that didn't really help William Fields the other day that everyone trusted him, because there was a freak accident basically happened where there was a regular customer. It was a pizza party. He came with a bunch of pizzas, and their porch completely collapsed when he rang the doorbell to bring his pizzas, and he got crushed to death. All right, so that's I don't even know how I didn't really turn it into a fun punchline, but I thought it was a funny story.
Well, I've got another one that might be a stumper for you, but then again, you know just about everything. So I have to ask, Tim, do you know what misophonia is? Misophonia. I don't think you do. I got to think about that. I might go. Well, you might, because you know me. Let me just explain. Misophonia, which literally means hatred of sound.
Oh, wow. Okay.
People with it are affected negatively by small everyday noises, usually ones that don't bother most people, like chewing, yawning, breathing, or throat clearing. And this disorder was first recognized in 2001. So it's still kind of new. They don't really know too much about it, but it essentially triggers a fight or flight response. What starts as just a distracting noise becomes the cause of full-blown outrage and anxiety, which you've experienced with me when you've been talking too much, to the point where the person feels they need to remove themselves, or the source of noise.
Oh,
So
I've witnessed this a million times as a musician with people's reactions. Trust me, it exists. I can promise you.
But let's examine exactly what causes this. And the scientists, although they're still researching it, but promising research from the Newcastle University Medical School says it might be caused just simply by the brain structure. So brain scanning, they found that people with misophonia, had heightened activity in the anterior insular cortex, which plays a central role in the system that determines to which things we should pay attention to or avoid at all costs.
Well, I would say that these things feedback with some people too. I mean, I think it could be somewhat spectrum. I mean, the obsessive behavior can feed this, I would imagine, where people can't. I think we've all experienced that, like something just keeping us awake at night. It can drive anyone nuts.
Well, exactly. But, there's no cure for the specific affliction, but may be able to manage symptoms with hypnosis, auditory distraction, exercise, white noise. I mean, I have
these things are very complicated. And there's a lot of theories that tinnitus is a psychological. Right. It does exist. People do.
I don't think it's of course.
No. But as far as I can remember, way before I was exposed to loud music and all that stuff, 3 years old, go to bed, Tim, whatever, that lights go out, I would hear a little ringing. I think it's there. And for some people, it can be exaggerated for whatever fucking reason.
Trust
Other
me,
people less.
Right. Now, I often can hear electricity or sounds on like 3 different levels, which seems quiet to other people. And it's just, and also, I mean, back to the Spanish artist Tres, who conducts silence. Once you've experienced somebody actually conducting the shutting down of everything into silence, you realize how much white noise we already have anyway. So
when electricity like in a house goes out because of a storm, blah, blah, if you have cats often, because all the ambient noise that we block out, all the little hums, when it's totally silent, cats start freaking out because they get so used to just that drone. That's always
right. That's why people who go to the country for the weekend often find the silence there highly alarming.
Well, true. But also, I don't know, people are hypersensitive too.
Oversensitive about the wrong things. I agree. Well, okay. Now, Tim, I don't know if you've ever experienced an ass bomb.
Oh boy. I mean, maybe. I just don't know what that is according to your definition.
If you think this intro has talked about some alarming things.
Right.
Spare a thought for the poor soul who prompted a response from the bomb squad after getting an artillery shell stuck up his bottom. Now, the anonymous patient who reportedly collected military memorabilia slipped and fell on a projectile from World War II. Now, the shell, which was a moderate 6.5 by 3 inches, like most men, would have been fired from an anti-tank gun during the war. Now, fearing that the round could detonate, the bomb squad was called to the emergency room, and this is in Gloucestershire, the Royal Hospital in the UK on Wednesday morning. Now, a constabulary spokesman said they responded to a report that a patient had presented with ammunition in his rectum. Now, the police also came and said the item had been removed prior to police arrival, and the explosives ordnance disposal team were contacted. They attended and confirmed it was not live and therefore not a danger to the public. Then the Army comes in and says, we can confirm an Army explosive ordnance disposal team was called out. And the patient found, once it was removed, that he was actually doing fine. Now, the patient, the anonymous ass bomber, claimed that he put it on the floor and then slipped and fell on it. Isn't that always the excuse? Oh, please.
ERs, if you're like a young doctor, the amount of shit they got to move, surgically remove foreign objects from people's assholes, it gets wide, no pun intended. It gets very eclectic. I mean,
I'm always surprised by light bulbs up there. I mean, how the hell?
Well, the light bulb, basically any surgeon that's had to deal with the light bulb, when they break, this is like a mess beyond belief. It's all this micro dust glass that they have to pick out there. I mean, shards galore. It fucks you up. No, there's been some really insane ones, like a pair of pants. I mean, there's been all types of. I mean,
you never know when you might have to change your pants. I mean,
oh my God. I mean, so the guy actually slipped in the butt.
Oh, come on, really?
Oh, of course we don't believe it. But if he didn't deal with it,
first of all, he must have been naked, and second of all, he must have had an awfully greasy ass.
Well, if he lights up the ass and he didn't do anything about it, I mean, the next person that invaded there for sexual reasons, I mean, it's essentially a landmine up your ass. I mean, as soon as he sticks something up there, it explodes.
I've heard of suicide bombers, but sexual bombers? I mean, it's just the latest. It's just the late. I mean, I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't a live round.
I mean, that must be if you're talking about different disorders, I'm hearing things. I mean, just the obsession of
feeling things.
Put something up your ass, no matter what it is. Like, oh, there's I don't know. there's
a two-headed turtle.
Yeah. Anything. I'm a little. I'm still on jet lag. I'm a little faster usually. All right. So
I don't know. I mean, you're gonna have to top this off because I can't go any further.
I have a good one. All right. So
finish us off.
Well, this is a good one. I'll finish it off with this one. Well, there's two of them, but I'll
just cut to the chase.
Well, this one's good. Kim Taylor, who a volunteer at Cultivate Care Farms, which is a comfort farms. Have you heard of these things? These farms where people go and they're stressed out. There's like animals that they can be around and pet and feel. Well, so she was cleaning up and a comfort sheep decided he didn't like her very much and basically just started going on some insane ramming fit and rammed her to death.
I heard about this. This
kept on going and she was just trying to.
I mean, there are better ways to be rammed. There are better ways to be rammed to death than that, I can assure you. But Jesus,
I mean, that's what you call a comfort sheep. I mean, I guess comfort. People who are comforting can also have little explosions of rage. Again, they're allowed to freak out. All right, I'm going to talk about this one. All right, Holly Collanda and Jackson Darnell in Florida were getting married, and everything's coming together. Some fucking trashy Florida wedding, and she's all excited in her dress, and they're just about to do the I do's, and she starts getting a little dizzy. She starts fainting. It's not the first time this has happened. But she full on faints. The groom catches her. Everyone's like, oh, this is all cute. She comes to and just starts dousing her own dress with her puke at that point. Everyone's like, oh my God, what's happening? But we're still going to bear with us. We're going to see this through. And for whatever fucking reason at that point, her nephew comes over and shits on her dress. I don't even know how the sequence happened. And the sister felt terrible. And she said, don't worry, we can bring it to dry cleaning. And well, now they're on their way. I guess they're doing their honeymoon in New York City. And so I guess they're just trying to move on.
They'll realize what being shit on really means. I mean, I hate to end this and with another scatological note, but since our guest will be Stuart Gray of the Art Gray Noizz, I once asked him, I believe it was at a sound check, when I was doing a few songs with him, I'm like, Stu, have you ever shat on stage? And he said, well, by the way, not on stage, but I remember once I was coming into a club for a sound check and I really had to go and take a dump. So I ran to the bathroom, but it was like, it was just full of fecal matter and remains, like to the brim. So he squatted over it, but the next thing he realized that his dick was dangling in the duty, which horrified him. And then he, of course, ran to the sink and doused it. And I fell in with the sentiment, it's just another reason I will never have sex with you. But that's all right. We still love you, Stu.
I have to say, certain rockers, that's part of the equation. And a good friend of mine says, you're not a real metalhead unless you have some form of skid marks on any given day.
Most rock bands are shitty by nature. So that's just the way it is. Anyway, this is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and special guest Stuart Gray of the Art Gray Noizz Quintet. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Stu Gray, sculptor, artist, composer, guitarist, vocalist of my favorite band, the Art Gray Noizz Quintet, other than Retrovirus, of course, who we often play with, who I've done some recording with. And I hope now that we're all back in the lockdown, we'll do some more recordings. How you doing, Stu?
Good. I have a label that wants to put out anything we do as well.
Oh, okay. So you have you're working some business deals. Are we? Sorry, where was
Yeah.
I? Are we in lockdown again? Is that what you supplied?
Well, I'm locking myself down.
Okay.
Well, we're all shivering in fear of the Omnicon or whatever it's called.
Are you shivering in fear, Stu?
No, not particularly.
As a triple vaxxer, as a matter of fact, being immune to almost every disease known to man except for man himself, I feel quite safe.
Cool. I mean, what do you think of safe spaces, Stu? Or do you not consider them at all? I mean,
I've never felt in fear of anything since I got like a really terrible septic infection years ago that nearly killed me. And I think after that, I'm immune to everything.
I was discussing that septic tank experience you had in the intro with Tim when I asked you if you ever had to take a dump on stage, and then you told me about running into it. We don't need to go into it. I already talked about it. It was a very scatological intro yesterday. And, today, including about a guy that accidentally fell on a bomb and had to get it removed. Anyway.
Yeah, that didn't happen. I mean, it
Oh,
did
right.
happen.
I saw that one. Yeah. He kind of waddled into the hospital with like a fucking V2 up his ass or something.
Yeah. Oh, how did that get there? Exactly. So, I wasn't the first interview with you. I wasn't there, and now I'm kind of there because I don't know where I'm in transit here between Massachusetts and New York. But besides the point, having conversations with you, your father was a professional musician.
Yeah.
Was he a bass player? Is that what you're telling me?
I've got videos of him playing recently. He's still out there doing it.
And what kind of music was he playing? Or does he play?
He was playing the Harlem Globetrotters song at the time, and he did a solo. Sweet Georgia Brown.
Okay. But what was his is he classic versatile bass player? He played everything, or was he?
I mean, he's really actually he doesn't like me to play it up too much. He's really like a part-time musician, and he was a printer as his day job.
Aren't we all part-time musicians?
He is in Adelaide. It's pretty hard to make a living there.
Adelaide, yes, it is. It's hard to make a living there with anything except for the university, right? Or what's the industry in Adelaide?
I don't know. We grew up near a great big oil refinery, and they were always taking us on field trips there, more or less saying, "This is where you're going to work."
Kind of like Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah.
I thought I recognized a little bit of the vulgarity of Dr. Feelgood in you, Stu. I always had a small hankering for the cruel and vindictive singer of Dr. Feelgood, as well as Wilco Johnson. A great influence on many people, I think.
Now, your dad was into, you said he studied the Carol Kay books. Is that?
Yeah, he used to have the Carol Kay books. Learn how to do boogaloo bass and stuff.
Do you know how to read music? I mean, did you grow up in a kind of musical family? Do you know how to read?
I do,
Yeah, exactly.
But when he first started to teach me to play the bass, of course, I thought the top string was the one closest to your head.
Right, which is not.
So I had him backwards, and then he wrote out some exercises for me to play, and it didn't make any sense because...
Right, that was funny.
You can imagine how it sounded. But...
Yeah, that's the thing for all you listeners out there that don't understand guitar kind of instruments. They think the top string is the one that's physically on top. But they refer to that in the music world, top being pitch wise. So the highest pitch is, so it's the one that's in the bottom. That's besides the point.
My favorite string is the high E, of course.
That's your favorite. And of course, typical 4-string bass, it's the G. But the G string, that's my favorite string. And you hate fretless bass, which kind of shocked me.
Who does? Lydia does, or I do?
I love it.
Well, what's interesting to me is that the Art Gray Noizz Quintet employs a 2-string bass, which I think is the first time I've ever seen that. But I don't miss the other 2 strings when Ryan is playing. I mean, he's
you're getting into guitar territory there with those strings. So we like to keep the bass low and slide up and down like a trombone.
If you want everything to be in its place, that's fine. If you want your arrangements to be a little more varied, you could use. I get away with murder. I use all the notes. Either. I use all the notes.
Can you use strings that aren't even there? You're a puppet master. You use invisible strings all the time. I see that happen every day. So.
Well, one of my heroes is Thelonious Monk, and that's what Miles Davis always said about Monk. he somehow finds the notes in between the notes. You know, it's a piano, but he's finding those notes in between them. I don't know how it's.
Well, with spoken word, I always say that the power is the space between breaths.
Well, it's the notes in between, but also Thelonious Monk's rests. He played the rests. He didn't like, oh, those are rests. He was waiting for the next note. He played the rests. Like the amount of weight, the duration that he gave those rests was as heavy as the notes he played. And that's kind of more people should do that, in my opinion.
So, Stu, what have you been doing during the non-ending lockdown into the semi-lockdown? I mean, were you writing any new tunes, or were you working on your sculptures, or what was going on, my friend?
I did, but not as much as I should have. I spent a lot of my time lying on my back watching crap on YouTube, unfortunately.
Any standout things from YouTube on your list of never to watch again?
There's Emma Kenny is really good. She's the best true crime podcaster. She was like this sexy chick that used to show up on true crime documentaries, English ones. And now she's got her own podcast, And then, of course, there's Sweet Anita, the gorgeous girl with Tourette's syndrome.
What? Who's that?
You gotta check her out. She's got Tourette's, and sometimes she goes off on these swearing rants that she can't stop, but a lot of the time she goes, and stuff like that.
Ever think about sampling her for a new track for the Art Gray Noizz?
I haven't, but it would be a good idea.
Well, there you go.
Just get her on. You don't need to sample her because she's going to be looping anyways.
Yeah,
she is a loop.
Maybe you could do have her on your show. She's fucking hilarious.
Oh my god, that's very mean spirited. I enjoy it.
Of course, you got to find a way of triggering her so that she goes off.
Oh boy.
I don't even know what to respond to that.
Yeah, I don't say. So Stuart, our producer Simon said, because you were on before, he said that you told him at a bar you got more things to say. I'm curious what those things are. Did you have a list, or were just saying that at the moment,
that's what I should have done during the COVID. I've got no excuse not to have finally, progressed further with the book that I'm supposed to be writing. Because everyone's always like, oh, you should write a book, And
I'm very interested in that, Stu, and very interested in cattle prodding you or I'm just reading anything. What about spoken word from the book? Have you ever done spoken word?
Yeah, I have. I was one of the first spoken word people I opened for Nick Cave doing spoken word in like 1988 or something like that.
All right, well, Stu, I might have to get back to you on that. What?
Yeah.
I opened for Henry Rollins doing spoken word.
Probably top both of them. Oh, I know I did.
I mean, they'd spend a lot more time, putting a lot more thought into it. And
well, we're going to have to discuss that off camera because I have plans for you, my friend, as you have plans for me.
Yeah.
I want to, before you get into your tall tales of gruesome existence, I just want to talk a little bit more about your sculptures and who are some of the characters that you've already designed, and when did you even start doing that? Have you always been doing your sculptures?
Well, I pretty much have, because there's ones around that I made at school of like Mick Jagger and Frank Zappa and stuff like that. In the 80s, I used to do them. I used to do a lot of that guy Bud Dwyer that shot himself on TV.
Yeah, yes.
And
the
of course, he had a
newscast
spring for a neck, so you could pull his face down to the gun and then reenact the shooting, so he could blow his brains out, and then there was blood that came out the back.
Oh my god!
And then a couple of serial killers.
Yeah, I did lots of serial killers, like G.G. Allen's brother Merle. He bought Hitler, a Gacy, an Ed Gein, and one of G.G. himself with a tiny little dick on a spring, and a turd coming out his mouth or his ass, I can't remember which one, and all the things that represented him.
Do you have a website for your sculptures?
I don't currently. I have in the past, but
okay, just wondering if somebody wants to place. And so, do you take requests?
Well, yeah, they always seem to request musicians, and
You said you were going to do a Captain Beefheart soon.
Yeah, I am. This girl just requested Captain Beefheart a couple of weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to making that. They used to literally be, generally busts. So they would just be the head and shoulders, like a bust of a famous composer like Chopin or Beethoven type thing. And then a couple of years ago, I sometimes started to make full-bodied ones. You don't want them to be more busts than action figures,
Well, if you did one of me, it would have to be a lot of bust.
Definitely.
Who is your favorite composer, Stu, in the classical quote unquote world? Do you listen to that music ever?
Yeah, I do. I can't say that I'm an authority on it enough to name someone very obscure,
Okay.
But there's certain pieces of Mozart that, are just fantastic. The piece of music that we do called Knight's Dance, which is actually, I heard it first on the History Channel. And
what?
That's from the ballet of Romeo and Juliet. And what the fuck is the guy's name again? Starts with a P. I should be able to remember, but
Penderecki?
No.
Classical?
Purcell?
No, not Purcell. I know he does like those trumpet things and stuff like that.
Well, we'll get back to you on that when we figure
Anyway,
it out.
I incorporated that piece of music because it went really well with stuff I saw on the History Channel. It goes like dum bum 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 rum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum rum ba dum ba dum.
I think you're the first karaoke performance we've ever had on this show. I'm not sure, but thank you very much.
Karaoke, a cappella, yeah.
Acapella karaoke.
Piece of footage with on the like the Battle of Stalingrad with an elephant tank in the background and that piece of music going.
I don't know why when you mentioned elephant tank, I suddenly think, because you told me earlier that you were going to drop a few stories about Tracy Pugh, who was the incredible bass player in the Birthday Party.
Yeah. Well, when I moved to Melbourne, I lived just around the corner from where Tracy Pugh and all his friends hung out. He was a very social guy. And he lived in an apartment with his best friend, Chris Walsh, who filled in for him when he was in jail that time. There was a car that was just around that we used to drive, and that's the one that Tracy Pugh got caught driving drunk eventually. One day he came up and knocked on the door and wanted the car back, which was a few months earlier. And another time I was in the studio where the Birthday Party and that used to record, called Richmond Recorders, and Tracy Pugh came in the studio with us. And there was he had his whole regalia on. He had like his leather pants and his spurs and that.
Cowboy hat.
And there was a bowl of fruit on the table. And he took 2 oranges and he stuck them on his spurs. And he just walked around for like half an hour with like oranges on the back of his boots.
He was a very bendable bass player. I mean, for a man that size, his back bends were pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, all the way into the bass drum and then lie on his back and do pelvic thrusts.
Wow. Yeah.
I will admit it. The Birthday Party was one of my favorite bands. I mean, they were kind of unparalleled at the time.
Yeah. I used to roadie for them whenever they played in Melbourne or Sydney when I was living there. Just, I'd get in the show for free and I'd get paid and hang out and do a bunch of drugs with them and stuff like that.
Growing up in Australia, what was the band that had the biggest impact when you saw them live? I mean,
well, it probably would be like the Birthday Party.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It's unusual for that time because, Australia had a bit of an inferiority complex.
Right.
Back, up until like, say,
Yahoo Serious?
Like that started to make it. And when AC/DC started to make it and all that.
Yeah.
So if an Australian band had a #1 record in America or whatever, it was doing it for the whole country,
Right.
Even when I came over here first and did certain things in America, I was a pioneer doing it for the whole country.
Representative.
Like it was the same for a band having a #1 record or an Australian vessel winning the America's Cup yacht race.
Oh, right. Yeah. That was very embarrassing for America. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're all in it together, Australia.
We always have a great time going to Australia. I mean, there were a lot of good musicians that came out of there, and certainly there's some incredible galleries as well. I mean, the only problem is it is really on the other side of the planet, but it's always worth going there, I guess. But yeah, I guess you won't be going back for a while, Stu.
Well, it might be soon. Well, hopefully, I might be having my problems finally resolved.
Well, that's good.
That would be great.
Yeah. I'm not going to publicly announce it on your.
No, of course.
No. We will all be rooting for the salvation of.
Yeah, I know. It's like I'm a convict in reverse. I've been fucking.
They even let you in. I mean, Australia's basically blocked everyone. Americans can't even mail things there right now.
Yeah, I know. All these people wanted to buy an album of mine, and they made it really expensive to send it. And then they just said you can't send anything at all.
I know, it's insane.
But the first time I went to Australia, before we disembarked, they sprayed the entire plane and all the people on it with some disinfectant. It was quite shocking. I know. So Stu, what's coming up with you? You said you might have some shows coming up.
Apparently, we're going to do a show with the Unsane.
So is this the Reformed, the newest, the latest, the original Unsane? Which Unsane?
I haven't heard it directly myself, ironically, but
Pete Shore, who was originally in the Unsane at one point, has the same birthday as I do, and was my blood tube appliance manager when I did a play south of your border. He had to put blood tubes under my wig. It was a fantastic experience.
Nice.
Unsane were fantastic. So I'm just wondering who's in that the latest incarnation.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's in it. I haven't spoken to them about that gig. I just know it's coming up. And
I guess you must be itchy to play after being in, locked up.
I wish I've only done 2 shows since COVID's what they at first said it came to an end, which it didn't come to an end, but since you could actually do shows again, I've done 2. So
was one with us.
Yeah. Well, one was with you, and the other one was this Rubelard thing where I kind of dressed as Jack the Ripper.
I remember once I was doing a spoken word show. I think it was the No Wave Out at this hotel in Lower Manhattan, and Michael Imperioli was on the bill, and you showed up looking like something out of Clockwork Orange. I was quite impressed with it was like a cross between a surgeon and Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, I had my doctor coat on. I was going down to judge a Halloween fancy dress contest at the beauty bar.
Well, you were quite fetching in that costume, I must say. I have a passion.
Were you wearing an eye patch, if I remember correctly, or no?
No, I don't think so. I think I was wearing a COVID-style mask before COVID because I was trying to look like a dentist. I have like a bloody doctor coat. So one year I was a doctor, the proctologist to the stars, and another year I was an evil dentist.
The Dentist is one of my favorite. Parts 1 and 2 are one of my favorite horror films. It's absolutely gruesome.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any bad dentist office experiences?
Well, I've been making my own teeth for like 20 years. Well, I got run over when I was 8 years old and got my front teeth broken. So then I had these, ultimately I had these beautiful porcelain teeth with platinum inserts. And then one day this guy ripped me off in a cocaine deal on Avenue C. And I followed him back to his place, like elbowing him, saying, "Give me back my money." And when we got back to his house, he's yelling up to his girlfriend, "Get the gun!" And we were like,
oh boy,
wrestling in his foyer, and he slammed my face either into the floor or the wall. I can't remember which, and he broke my beautiful teeth.
Wow! So you're going.
And then I couldn't get the dentist to fix my front teeth for ages. They kept saying, "We're going to get your gums healthy" and shit like that. So eventually I started making them out of Sculpey, which came in ivory color, just the right color for teeth. But they were too fragile, certainly too fragile to eat with. And then I had the brilliant idea of going to the Halloween store and just getting vampire teeth and cutting the points off.
Are you telling me the truth?
So they weren't flat.
I mean, you saw him pull out his 2 front teeth. I mean, unfortunately, this is only audio, but it was a grand spectacle, I might say. Well, I've heard you offer to make other people teeth, but they've refused.
No, people ask me to make them teeth, but I say, people ask me to make them teeth, but I explained to them how you do it. But I don't
what about,
there was an article in Bob Burt's magazine, BB Gum, once, how to make your own teeth. And I said it was the third in part in a series. The first part was how to make your own breast implants.
Oh, that doesn't usually go as well.
And the answer to that was just get a couple of balloons and stick them up your shirt, you know, and
Nice.
then how to make your own colon, which is like get a sausage and stick it up your ass and hollow it out.
Some real wise advice here.
I've been an authority on those things, but
I wish you were wearing your doctor's coat right now, because this advice is just the best I've heard from the non-American, non-medical association in quite a while.
What about George Washington had wooden teeth? What was up with that?
Allegedly,
wooden teeth. Yeah.
I think it was actually the mounts that were made out of wood, and then they used the teeth of dead soldiers and put them into the.
Right.
It was before rubber was invented or anything.
You know, I have a collection of teeth, Stu, but they're human teeth. It's just in case I need to implicate anybody in one of my future crimes. Enough said.
All right.
You're the only person I know who I honestly, that's ever. Well, you're the only person that ever told me they made their own teeth.
Cost of dentists in this country, I think more people should start investing in. I mean, I have some dental tools. If anybody needs a cleaning, trust me, the dentist 1 and 2, we can revisit, maybe the dentist 3.
If I could figure out a way to do it without it being too painful and crude but practical enough, I would make the back teeth and stuff that I need. But
I think molars would be more complicated.
Yeah.
Do any of your sculptures have real teeth?
No, but they sometimes used to have real pubic hair on them. If I would make sculptures of people that I didn't particularly like, and then kind of giggle to myself when the public, you know, walked off having just purchased a Boy George because they used to have real hair on them, you know. So I would sneak some pubic hair in amongst the
Contact Stu Gray for all your sculpture demands or needs. Christmas is coming. I think it would be great to put in a few orders here. That's all I'm saying.
I promise I won't put any nasty stuff in there.
Don't you charge extra for that, Stu?
I probably should, yeah. I mean, if they actually want it, I could probably part with a few pubes. But...
Well, speaking of Boy George, did you ever run into? He lives in New York most of the time. Did you ever run into that?
Have I run into him? No, I don't think I go to the same kind of places as him.
Well, he usually is in his own apartment calling the cops on himself. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. That was a bit of a mistake.
So are there any bands in New York that you like at the present? I mean, who knows what's out there, because we haven't been out there ourselves for a while. But are there any?
I was hanging out with that band Surfboard the other night.
How was that?
And
you know them?
I know who they are, but I've
never hung with them. She's got like pubes that go all the way.
I know she is. So how are they to hang out with?
Yeah,
they're great. I've known them for a few years, you know, especially the drummer. He's an old friend of mine, Sean Powell.
So how did you meet Nikki, your sax player?
She was in a band with this guy that used to be in my band.
Yeah, because I've known her for a while, and I was shocked. I was like, oh, how did those two hook up? But yeah, cool.
She was playing with this guy who used to be in my band. I don't really want to
give him any credit.
He's the Anthony Weiner of rock.
Oh boy!
And you know what that means. So
keep on going. I want to tell you. Tell me.
I always love when women play play saxophones, violin, cello. But I love a woman with a big horn, and she's so good. It's really a joy to have. I always love live saxophone on stage, but it's a joy.
It's funny when girls play the sax. That's a band I used to go and see in Australia, the Laughing Clowns, which was a follow-up band to the Saints.
Oh wow! Yeah,
like the guitarist, the Saints formed this band called the Laughing Clowns, and they had this girl called Louise Elliott that used to play the sax, and she kind of stood there and blasted away on the sax. Kind of reminds me a bit of how Nikki plays.
Nikki plays baritone, right?
No, she plays tenor. Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, I don't think
she did have a baritone.
Oh, that would be badass sounding. You guys should. Those aren't cheap, but I endorse that. They're not cheap. Baritones are expensive. Yeah.
Anyway, Stu, you have quite a few songs in the can. Some that you were kind enough to ask me to be on too. And I look forward to finishing some of this stuff because it's really fun, raunchy rock and roll. And there's few bands out there now that I find are as rocking. I mean, this is what's so enjoyable about playing with.
We have like a rock and roll kind of energy, but without all the cliches, you know?
Yeah. And that's what I like playing with Retrovirus. This is why I love the double bill of the Art Gray Noizz Quintet and Retrovirus. I just think it's the perfect coupling of raunch, groove, no wave, avant weirdness with sassy lyrics. So,
but Stu, you know, you don't have the cliches. But I almost even miss the cliches. So many bands, I feel like they've never even seen a band. I don't even know what's going on.
Well, I mean, yeah, you got to jump around and you know, rock out, but without, you know.
Yeah, of course.
No, the point is this: is the generation that we, as teenagers, the music we listened to, did influence, even if it didn't influence directly my music, it influenced the energy of my music, and it certainly influenced to some degree Stu's music, although he's done more out things. I mean, I think the Art Gray Noizz is the perfect next follow-up to a lot post-glam, I mean, and especially it's not a glam band, but it still has that same energy of music that we were listening to that was glam at that point. Do you agree, Stu?
Yeah, because I want the shows to have that kind of fun vibe as opposed to being kind of pretentious like an avant-garde or experimental thing is. At the same time, I'm kind of conflicted because I always wanted to play new stuff that hadn't been done before. I was into like being progressive on the guitar, but without, you know, but to also make it fun. So it's hard to find a medium.
Well, I also think it's about just authenticity. So, I mean, you can be experimental and be the real deal. And the thing about when you talk about pretentious, I mean, there's a lot of people that go into the avant-garde, they give the real people, the lovers of that stuff, a bad name because the general public can't differentiate the bullshit from the real shit.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, the people on stage are having more fun than the audience is, you know.
And what do you think about that? Do you like having more fun than the audience?
Of course, I want to have fun on stage, but I don't want it to be like.
I always have more fun than most of the audience.
Jerks between the band members, you know, and alienate the audience. I want to have some girls at my show.
I'll send some from my show over to yours, but that's why it's good if we play together. They usually stick around.
Roar.
All right, I'm gonna close this off with the fact that there will be more from the Art Gray Noizz Quintet. There will be some with me as well. There will be more Retrovirus Art Gray Noizz double bills because who else do we have?
That's what Lydia always says. Well, who can we play? It's like, I have to go back to Art Gray Noizz because there's really no one else.
Well, if there is, present yourself, children. But anyway, what more can I say? Stu, sculptor,
well, thanks for having
composer.
me back on again.
What?
Thanks for having me back on.
Well, you're the only repeat offender, but we had to do it. So solicit Stu Gray for sculpture. Go listen to the music that you can find. Watch some videos. Have fun. What more can I say? It's the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lounge, Tim Dahl, and Stu Gray, Art Gray Noizz Quintet. Thank you, Stu.
Thanks, Stu.